Hello and welcome to the Fat Doctor podcast. I am your host, Dr. Asha Lamy. Welcome to those of you who have never been here before. I'm actually going to be linking this podcast episode to my website. So people might appear on my website, see this episode, and click to watch it on YouTube or listen to it wherever they listen to their podcast and be like, oh, who's this weirdo? Some of you have been here for a long time. This is your, 37th, 38th episode of the 4th season of the Fat Doctor podcast. 4th, I tell you. And I've been around for a few years now, and some of you have been listening in this whole time, which is incredible. And I want to spend a moment saying thank you, because quite often I'm just talking to a microphone and to my computer, and then I publish it on the internet, and I assume that it's not being listened to. But some of you are listening. Some of you get back to me sometimes and go, hey, like the last podcast episode. And I'm like, wow, somebody's listening. This is incredible. So thank you to those of you who have been with me for some time, even from the start, have been here to watch my evolution. And thank you to those of you who are joining me now. I thought that I would spend today reacquainting myself with my listeners or followers, or perhaps I should say giving you the opportunity to reacquaint yourself or acquaint yourself with me, because I haven't done one of these kind of for a long time, maybe never, introducing myself. In fact, there is an introduction episode, I think the very first episode I ever made with my sister. I have changed a lot since then. In fact, I think I was Natasha when I made that episode. For those of you who don't know, I am transgender. I transitioned, believe that it was November 2021, so this is November 2024 now. It was 3 years ago. Wow, I'm actually coming up to my trans birthday. Is that a thing? Yeah, that's exciting. I should do something to celebrate. It's the 5th of November for those who care. Anyway, if you want to send me a birthday message, feel free. I am just going to talk a little bit about me and who I am. As I said that, I was like, wow, that's vain. But no, a little bit about my my own personal experience, because I say a lot of things. I'm quite controversial. Some of you might be watching this video kind of like out of rage or spite. Some of you might be like, you can't be serious. And many of you might actually think, oh, actually, I've been paying attention for a while now, and Asha makes a good point. So I want to take you through my journey. I was writing a weight loss blog back in 2020. And the reason that came about was because I just turned 40 years old. May 2020, I turned 40 years old. We were in the middle of a pandemic, in case any of you have forgotten, and it was lockdown. It was horrendous. I was working in a COVID clinic. Half the time I was working in general practice, for the other half the time working in out of hours as well. So it was you know, we all stepped up during that time. Everyone, all of us, every single individual on the planet, I imagine, stepped up during that time. And so it was pretty dire, and I needed an outlet. I think I needed something to do that wasn't COVID, where people were dying and I was watching people drop like flies. So, and also terrified that I might die at any moment. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll write a blog. Maybe I wanted a legacy. Maybe that was the thing. And around the same time, I was on a diet. And I was on a diet because they'd said to me, you know, if you lost weight, you'd be less likely to die from COVID. And it was a reasonable suggestion at the time. I turned 40. My BMI was over 40. And apparently that put me at very high risk. So I don't use BMI, by the way, for those of you who are like, I should just say BMI. I don't use BMI, but I did use BMI back then, and they were using BMI. By they, I mean, you know, the powers that be that told us all sorts of things, some of which were true, some of which were complete lies. But at the time, I didn't know any better, so I went on a crash diet. You know, I won't give you too many details because I don't want to trigger any of you. But I went on a crash diet. I was losing a ton of weight, and I thought, you know, I'm going to write a weight loss blog, or I'm going to write a blog, and it's going to be about my weight loss journey, and I'm going to call myself the Fat Doctor, because I'm going to be ironic. You see, because what will happen is I'll be fat now, but then I'll become thin. And then when I tell everybody I'm the Fat Doctor, they'll go, that's funny. That was my theory at the time. I identified as a thin person in a fat body. Mentally and emotionally, I was thin. Just happened to be in the wrong body. I say that with jest. Obviously, that's not actually true. I was absolutely in the right body, and as is always the case, when I go on a diet and when you go on a diet, when everyone goes on a diet really, is I lost a lot of weight and everyone was like, wow, you're amazing. Oh, how did you do that? Like, oh, keep going. Yes, queen. That was okay at the time. I was still presenting as a woman. That comes later. And so everyone loved me and thought I was great. And I was like dropping, like I was in scrubs, right? We were working in scrubs. We used to be all professional dress, but then we were working in scrubs because of COVID. And my favourite part was like the scrubs, like they went up to a size XL and they didn't fit me. And so then you were like, I need special scrubs, and they had to order special scrubs from a special place, and that was awful. And then when you were going into the COVID clinics, you didn't get to take your own scrubs. So I had a few sets of my own scrubs, but with the COVID clinic, because of the way we were washing the scrubs afterwards, you had to use what was on offer, and they never had anything above a size large. So I would be in the COVID clinic so uncomfortable trying to squeeze into clothes that I blatantly didn't fit in. And so one of the best things actually for me was I've lost enough weight that I can actually now fit in the scrubs that assigned to me, and that was my goal at the time. I was feeling really smug, and then, as is always the case, I stopped losing weight because I lost a lot of weight, and then I stopped losing weight, and then I got really depressed. And that's happened so many times now I can't count. And I got to a stage probably about November time. Actually, it was probably around this time. Days were getting shorter, it was getting bleaker, we'd had a couple of lockdowns by then, it was getting dire, and I was starving. I was starving. I was so hungry, and I was trying to work, and I was exhausted, and I just didn't know that I could do it anymore, and I was just ready to give up. I was ready to throw away who cares, no one's even paying attention to the blog. And then along came some people in the anti-diet community who were like, hey Asha, did you know that it's quite normal to like hit a plateau and then like stop losing weight? And I was like, is it? Well, I mean, I sort of knew it was my experience, but I assume that's just because I'm lazy and useless and horrible and and terrible and awful and all those things. And they were like, no, that's the thing. Welcome to the anti-diet community. Here's a pamphlet. Here's a book. Read this. So I did. I started reading all about why diets don't work and health at every size, and there were these blogs and there were these videos and Instagram reels. I found Instagram at the ripe old age of 40. I found myself on Instagram and started following people, and it was less about diets and more about intuitive eating. They said intuitive eating, what? But yeah, it was the thing. I started learning all about it, and I learned first and foremost that weight loss is just not sustainable. Yeah. Who knew? Not me. And then I realised that you don't fail the diet fails you, because energy restriction by definition is not something that the body will tolerate for any length of time, for any long for some length of time, and that's what's the term I'm looking for. It's not something that the body will tolerate in the long term. There you go. It will tolerate in the short term because bodies, evolution, centuries, millennia. There were times when we didn't have access to food, so our bodies were prepared to go through periods of famine and period of feasting, but that didn't last. There came a point in time when our body was like, alert, something is going wrong, we need to do something about this, and our body starts to compensate, which is why we lose a lot of weight at the beginning, and then it begins to plateau, and then eventually you hit the peak, and then what happens? You start regaining weight. I found out that up to 2/3 of the weight that you lose, you regain in the first year. That almost everyone has regained all the weight they lost within 5 years. And then that up to 2/3 of people end up heavier than when they first started. And when I found this out, I was like, wait, what happened to me? And I was partly disappointed because I always used to think I was unique and special. And it turns out I'm just a regular person. I'm just a statistic, which was, hard to swallow at the time. But yeah. It was just a thing. It just happened to everyone. And then I think it took a little bit longer for me to accept, all right, I'm not going to try and lose weight anymore, because I was like, if it's not going to work, I'm not going to do it. But I'm still going to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to watch what I eat, but I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm just trying to be healthy, man. I just want to be healthy. And then I found out, at this point in time, my mind was blown. Then I found out, as I started researching, people were like, are you sure that being on a diet or, watching what you eat and how much you exercise is going to impact your health? I was like, yeah, of course it is. I'll find you a study. So I did. And there are some studies that show that in the short term, if you watch what you eat or if you exercise, then that will definitely improve your health markers. And actually, even with exercise, there are some studies that long term exercise improves your health. I'll give you that. But to be fair, it was a very small amount of exercise. I was like, that's not good enough. That's 10 minutes a day. If you lost your mind, that's not enough. So, I was still convinced that the lifestyle change was going to make a difference. But deep down inside, I was kidding myself. It was about weight loss and health. And then I realised that weight loss doesn't improve your health at all. At that point in time, literally my mind was blown. That emoji where the part of the head comes off and there's the smoke and that was my life. Every time I read a paper and I was like, wait, what? Again, what? So here I am writing a weight loss blog, failing at weight loss, then realising that weight loss actually isn't sustainable for basically everyone. And then actually, more importantly, all the stuff I learned since I was a wee babby was a lie. And this is a good opportunity for me to take you back to May 1980. May 8th of May 1980. A sweet baby girl, female baby was born at the Royal Free Hospital in Hampstead in London, weighing in a healthy 8 pounds and something. It was about 8 pounds. First child born to Beatrice and Jack. Beatrice is actually Beatriz. That's a Brazilian name. She was born in Rio. Her father was a German Holocaust survivor. Her mother was a Ukrainian pogrom survivor. And both her mother and father had escaped from their respective countries to Brazil, got on a boat to the Americas, and they ended up in the south part of the Americas. Ended up in Brazil. They met, they married, they had children. My mother was also the oldest, Beatriz, and she was born in Brazil, but she lived all over the place, spoke 7 different languages, was a troubled soul, loved her very much. Died in July 2013. Yeah, I knew that. Totally. July 2013. She died of pancreatic cancer. She was on a mission to lose weight her whole entire life, and she finally did it in the last 6 months of her life, and then she died. Isn't that sad? We'll quickly sweep that one under the carpet for now. Maybe that's for another podcast episode. But yes, I was born to Beatriz and a man named Jack, a narcissist and a very cruel man who's still alive, much to my chagrin. Not that I want him dead, but I don't really care either way. Anyway, well, I don't really have anything to say about him. His mother, my grandmother, helped raise me as well. Wonderful little, very short Lebanese woman. But my family are actually Armenian in origin. So they survived the Armenian genocide. So I have a Holocaust survivors, pogrom survivors, and Armenian genocide survivors in my family tree. Isn't that interesting? I'm Jewish, but not religious at all. And I'm Asian, but very pale-skinned. By the way, all of my family, most of my family, not my sister, but most of my family, very brown, very tanned, very olive complexion, swarthy, as the British would say, swarthy. Not me. I'm deficient in the old melanin. But anyway, I'm not complaining. I am complaining, but I'm not complaining. Anyway, so I was born in 1980 and I grew up in North London and I went to school, and then in 1998 I went to medical school and I graduated in 2003 from St Bartholomew's and the Royal London Medical School. And by that point in time, I was fully into diet culture. In fact, I think I went on my first diet when I was 7, 8. I can remember restricting from a really young age. My mother was obsessed with my weight. My whole family was obsessed with weight. My grandmother was obsessed with it. Everyone was obsessed with weight. It was how we talked about each other, and so I was very conscious of my weight. I started dieting as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, and then as an older adult, and I kept dieting until I was, like I said, 40. And as a result, I'd gained quite a bit of weight over time. I had 3 babies in there. So I had my first baby in 2006. I got pregnant in 2005, to be fair. And my second in 2008, and my third in 2013. And had a miscarriage along the way, which was not great. I don't know why I'm sharing all of these personal details with you, but it's all coming out now. So by the time I turned 40, I had this huge belly, and I have actually quite slender arms and legs. So I carry it all in the middle. My daughter often tells me that I remind her of Gru, and I really do. I want to get the grey and black striped scarf, because with the short hair and my shape and this nose, I am like, I am very Gru-like. But yeah, that was my body. And of course, that made me very high risk, don't you know? Because it was an apple shape and I was carrying all that weight around my middle. And that's the worst place to carry fat. And didn't I know I was going to get diabetes, which, I had gestational diabetes probably during all 3 pregnancies, but it was only picked up in my 3rd pregnancy because they didn't test for it back in 2005 and 2007. They didn't test me for it properly. Didn't have glucose tolerance tests then. And if they did, they certainly didn't offer me one. So, I sort of dabbled with a bit of diabetes in my time. And that was that. I'm going to take you forward now. So 2020, I was writing a weight loss blog. By the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, I had given up my diet. I had given up diets altogether. I was beginning to realise that all this stuff I'd learned in medical school, 2003 I graduated, 2009 I was a GP. I became a GP, I qualified as a GP. I'd been a doctor since 2003, and I knew that weight loss was good for you, right? I was absolutely certain. There was no question in my mind. So there was a lot of deprogramming going on during that time. A lot of like, what? Moments, and like me, I'm like checking my phone right now because I wrote down a few notes, and just all the things I learned. Like, for example, I was absolutely positive that weight loss improved your health. Like, for example, you've got arthritis in your knee. Oh, well, that's because of extra load on your joints, So lose some weight and that will cure your arthritis. That's what I said. And people be like, well, I would like a joint replacement. I'm like, not at your size. You've got to lose weight first. So that's what I believe. I genuinely believed it. And that's what the guidelines said. And that's what all the evidence said, didn't it? Didn't it? No. Since then, I've done some research, and the evidence says the absolute opposite. The evidence says that weight loss doesn't improve your knee pain. In fact, weight loss doesn't improve your pain at all. All your function, all your mobility, maybe for a few months, and that's probably the placebo effect, but certainly not in the long term. I also learned that losing weight doesn't reduce your risk of complications during a knee replacement surgery. I keep telling people, I had been telling people for years, you have to lose weight to reduce your risk of complications, and then I read a study that basically proved it didn't. That was a shocker, I'll tell you. And I learned that actually it doesn't even even being thin doesn't even prevent you from getting arthritis of the knee. I was convinced that was the case. And then I looked at a study that was done in, I think it was Norway, or Finland, or somewhere in Scandinavia, I think. And it was called I don't know, I can't remember it now, possibly. But anyway, if you join me for my osteoarthritis masterclass, then you will find all of this information out because I will be sharing it in the masterclass. But that's, by the way, that's next. Yes, it will be next Tuesday. I'm trying to think when I'm bringing this out. That'll be next Tuesday, the 5th of November, which happens to be my trans birthday. So come join me on my trans birthday on the 5th of November for my osteoarthritis masterclass. But I digress. Yeah, so like that was a shocker. And then I was like, all right, fine. Okay. But I know that weight loss improves your diabetes. I know this. And diabetes was a big thing for me. So I was like, of course, losing weight improves your diabetes. And then I went and looked at the research. And again, I was like, what do you mean it doesn't? How can it not? Like, that's all we tell our patients. You're diabetic, lose some weight. And then I went to the Look Ahead study. And I looked ahead. What happens if you lose weight and you're diabetic? And it turns out it doesn't improve your HbA1c in the long term. It doesn't improve your risk. It doesn't reduce your risk of a heart attack or a stroke or cancer or anything. It does nothing. Even if you by the way, these people were able to maintain the weight loss. It's not even that they didn't just lose the weight. They maintained the weight loss by losing and gaining and losing and gaining. But whatever. After 10 years, it did nothing. What? Do you know how upset I was? I want you to understand how upset I was. So by the time we got to like November 2021, this was a year now after I ditched the diet. I was in a bit of a way. A lot had changed. A lot had changed. I had come to a place where I was eating intuitively, where I had really begun to love and accept my body. And now, disclaimer, I've been working on that for years. I've been working with a therapist. I've been doing all sorts of things. But this was kind of like the final jigsaw puzzle piece where I was able to accept, this is my body. It's not changing. I can't change it. I can't shrink it. So I'm just going to have to live with it, which I did. And what else? By that point in time, I was beginning to realise that everything that I had been taught in medical school was a lie. And if this is a lie, then what else is a lie? Do you know what I mean? If the arthritis piece is a lie and the diabetes piece is a lie, what else is a lie? Is anything true? It's a very stressful time. And I just thought to add to my stress, and this is something that I had been sort of dealing with for a very long time, as I'd got to a place of body acceptance where I was able to look at my body and be like, that's a fat body and I'm all right with that. I no longer identified as a thin person in a fat body. I identified as a fat person in the right body, which is great. Except I still had a lot of body dysmorphia and I couldn't quite figure out what it was until I realised, oh, you remember how you always wanted to be a boy? Like from when you were really little, like from when you were like 2 and your earliest memories. You remember how you always wanted to be a boy? Turns out you might actually just be transgender. And let me tell you, after the shocks, after the sort of like, mind blown light bulb eureka moments that I'd had over the past year, that one really almost finished me off, because it turns out I'm transgender. And I have always been transgender. And it took me 41 years to figure that out. And I'm glad I did. And I came out. I went from being Natasha to Asha. For those of you who ever find me under my previous name, that's all good. It was my name. I don't have a problem with Natasha. It was the name my mother gave me. But I renamed myself Asha, which means blessed. And it sounds like, because people used to call me Tasha. So it sounded like Tasha, but it was Asha. So I quite like the sound. Found out later on that I'm also autistic. We haven't got there yet. Oh gosh, there's a lot. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit this into one episode. Anyway, I came out in 2021 in November, and all of you were amazing. Those of you who you went, all right, you're not Natasha anymore. You're Asha. That's cool. We're here. And you're not she, you're they, and then he, and now you either they or he me. And if you accidentally call me she, you're like, oh, I'm really sorry about that. And I'm like, yes, fine, don't worry about it. I sometimes she myself. And then you carry on, and you have just been absolutely incredible. And I just haven't had any drama, and I can't believe how little drama I've had. So thanks for that. If there are people watching this video that I don't believe in the transgender thing, then this is the time to switch off. You can go now. You're dismissed. You're not welcome here. Otherwise, thanks to all of you who've been good. I genuinely mean that. Like, you've been amazing. But I was blown away. Like, there were a lot of changes happening in my life, and I think, and you won't be surprised to hear, at this point in time, I had a bit of a breakdown. I look back and I realise I have a history of burnout. I've had episodes of burnout throughout my adult life, actually, where I worked really, 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 really hard for very long periods of time and then just crash. I'm pretty sure I got pregnant with my daughter. I always tell her it was intentional. And it was intentional, but I'm pretty sure I did it so that I didn't have to go to work for a year, if I'm honest. I wanted a third child. I did, I think. But I also really needed some time off work. By the way, just note to self and to everyone else, having a baby is not a good way to get out of work. Just FYI. But, at the time it made sense. So I have a history of burnout. I have a history of depression and anxiety. Well, that's what I was told. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. In fact, during this most recent period of burnout, which happened around the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, actually, I was diagnosed formally, officially, with depression and anxiety, even though I'd had episodes where I was really quite unwell, bordering on needing admissions, and they never actually put that diagnosis in my notes. I don't know if it's because I was a doctor and they didn't want to, but I officially got the diagnosis and I was started on medication, and things got a little bit better. But at the same time, 2 of my children became really unwell. And when I say unwell, they developed a chronic disability and they were in and out of hospitals. There's a hospital called Great Ormond Street Hospital in London. It's a children's hospital. I spent many a night there and day there and many a trip there. And my children can actually walk from the station, King's Cross, used to get into King's Cross station, then walk to Great Ormond Street. And they can kind of do it blindfolded now, I think, because we've been there so often. So that wasn't fun. I took some time off work sick. I went off work sick and tried to put my life back together. And I look back now and I realised that the reason I was getting burnt out all the time was because I'm autistic. My children are autistic. That's not what they were in hospital for, by the way. But yeah, my children are autistic. 2 definitely have ADHD. 3rd, I think, does as well. And I'm pretty sure my husband does too, and I'm pretty sure I do too. So yeah, that was nice figuring that one out. That was my most recent light bulb, mind blown moment. But it's the last one. I don't want any more. I'm done now. I think I figured it all out. So here I was at home trying to cope with life and deal with burnout and COVID and all the other stuff that was happening, and my children being sick. And in April of, no, it wouldn't be April, it would have been February of 2022, I sat down at the table with my family and I said, I think we should move to Scotland. We lived in just outside of London at the time. And they all looked at me like I'd lost my mind. And I said, no, I really want to move to Scotland. And they were like, why Scotland? You've only ever been there once in your life. I was like, I just think we need to move to Scotland. I'm pretty sure that's where we're supposed to go. That was February. And, I have a habit of doing these things, slightly sort of dramatic things. And they didn't really pay much attention to me. But I kept pestering them. Can we just go to Scotland and just figure out, like, if it's for us? So in April, we visited Scotland as a family and we travelled around Scotland. And I was just like, can you imagine yourself living here? And they were like, yeah, maybe. And then I was like, I really want us to move to Scotland. And by the end of April, I'd convinced them that that was the right thing to do. And we put our house on the market. And at the end of May, beginning of June 2022, we just about sold the house and we came to Scotland and we put an offer on the house in Scotland. And by the middle of August 2022, we'd moved in. We left London. It's 7.5 hour drive for those who are interested. You have to go by plane, even trains about 4.5 hours, to Scotland, where we knew nobody. And I had no connection to Scotland. I fucking love it, by the way. I mean, I recommend everyone moves to Scotland, except for I don't want you all to come here, so you can just dream about it and never actually do it. But it's beautiful. I love my life. I love this place. It was exactly what I needed. It's being close to nature for the first time has really helped with my symptoms of burnout, and also not having to deal with people has also helped with my symptoms of burnout. But anyway, so whilst I was here, like moving in, a lot of stuff happened. You've been with me, right? There was drama. I pissed off a few people on the internet once or twice. I don't know why. I'm delightful. But I managed to get my Instagram account cancelled twice. Not once, but twice. I lost everything and started again. And some of you followed me, like 3 times. You followed me to 3 different Instagram accounts. I was on Twitter and then Elon bought it and then I left. Not straight away, but soon after. And I had some drama on Twitter and I got into internet spats with people who pissed me off because they were wrong. Because I don't know if you know this, but I'm generally right. Jokes. Although if you ask my children, I am always right. But no, I would make statements about weight loss and people would disagree with them, understandably, because I'm pretty controversial. Once dubbed Britain's most outrageous doctor in a newspaper article, which I'm very proud of. So yeah, I got into some spats. People reported me to the GMC. They accused me of bringing the profession into disrepute. And for 2 years I was investigated. And if you want to learn about that, if you're really into that story, I'm sure there are some episodes of this podcast you can listen to. But yeah, that wasn't fun. In the end, they decided that they were going to give me a smack on the wrist because I was a racist, transphobic, homophobic person that needed to be taught a lesson because I'd written 2 tweets in which I had disparaged cisgender white heterosexuals. How dare I? So, at that point in time, it was okay. By the time they had slapped my wrist, I was like, fuck you, I'm not coming back anyway, because there comes a point in time when one has to ask themselves whether they're prepared to work in a profession that is so wholly and utterly dedicated to making the lives of fat people miserable. Like, I mean, I'm not saying like, oh, we accidentally occasionally step on people's toes. No, the purpose, like not the sole purpose, because the medical profession likes to upset a lot of people, but the sole purpose of the medical profession is to protect the health and the rights of certain individuals, certain groups, and oppress others by denying certain groups of people access to good healthcare. The right healthcare, the healthcare that we promise to give everybody, because we're all into equality in medicine. By intentionally denying that, or unintentionally denying, it doesn't matter whether it's intentional or unintentional, by stigmatizing people, by creating this kind of horrible system whereby we use, for example, the BMI to sort of deny people healthcare and then say, look at these people with a high BMI. They have such bad health. Like, no shit. Of course they do. You've been denying them healthcare. So in that kind of system that is so warped, and I'm sure there's like a term for it, but I don't know what it is. I just was just like, I can't. I got to check out. I can't do this anymore. This is not right. It's not for me. Because, by this point in time, it wasn't just that I'd learned that weight loss was unsustainable and that weight loss didn't really improve your health. I started to realize how dangerous weight loss was, how much harm it causes people, like the physiological harm, the psychological harm. I started to learn about weight cycling, which blew my mind. Not only is like losing weight, regaining weight, losing weight, regaining weight, not only is that like a part of life, but it's actually really bad for you. Oh, and that time that I went on a diet and then went on a diet and then went on a diet and then went on a diet, that actually increased my insulin resistance. Because I had a genetic predisposition to insulin resistance and because I had a history of gestational diabetes, I was basically fucked. That was a diabetes diagnosis waiting to happen. And so when it did happen, and you're welcome to listen to the 3rd episode of this podcast that I ever made with an endocrinologist called Dr. Greg Dodell. And at the time, I was telling him how anxious I was about the fact that I might get a diabetes diagnosis down the line. And then I did. It was like my worst nightmare came true. But by that point in time, I was like, this is not my fucking fault. Actually, I wasn't straight away. It took a while. But eventually I figured out this is not my fucking fault. In fact, if anything, I am angry at all the weight cycling that I have endured and that the people who told me it was the right thing to do. I'm angry at them. I'm still angry at them. I also learned about eating disorders because I knew about eating disorders. Like at the time, eating disorders, that's, they affect like thin people, very thin people, people who have lost so much weight that they need to be admitted into hospital. I didn't realise that eating disorders affected fat people. But then I did. And then I learned about how basically weight cycling is, or dieting, or extreme dieting, the kind of dieting that you and I have taken part in, is actually increases your risk of an eating disorder up to 18-fold. And a lot of fat people have an eating disorder and don't know about it. And then I was like, in fact, got to the stage where I realised, do you know, the medical profession kind of almost encourages fat people to have eating disorders. It's almost like they want fat people to have eating disorders. Like this is, and then I started reading stuff and I was like, they're not even being subtle about it. They're actually saying we want you to have an eating disorder. They're not even trying to hide that. It's better to have an eating disorder and be thin than it is to be, mentally and emotionally well and fat. That's, I don't know if you know that. So I got to the stage where I was like, well, this is bullshit. Weight cycling is bullshit. Eating disorders, bullshit. I can't believe this has been like we have been put through all of this just because people didn't like our fat bodies. More importantly, that was my phone. More importantly, I learned that it wasn't just because they didn't like us. Part of it's because they didn't like us, but also I learned how much money there was in weight loss. And I happened to be going through this transitional period at a time where a new weight loss drug had just come on the market. I don't remember this, but in 2021, the FDA approved a drug called Wegovy, semaglutide. Now, I had been prescribing semaglutide for a few years to my diabetic patients, but now it was being used for weight loss. And I knew Ozempic caused weight loss. And I was like, what's the difference between Ozempic and Wegovy? It was the dose. Ozempic was up to 1 milligram and it was for diabetes. Wegovy was 2.4 milligrams and it was for weight loss. So I was like, well, I'm not sure this is right. And I started looking into it. And then I started to learn about Novo Nordisk, the drug manufacturer, the drug company that manufactures Wegovy. And then Eli Lilly, who I'd heard of, because Novo Nordisk, nothing company, nobody knew about them until Ozempic and Wegovy. And Eli Lilly I'd heard of, they're a big company, and their drug Mounjaro. And all of a sudden I had been introduced to the way that the pharmaceutical industrial complex has been pushing the weight loss agenda for a long time, but especially now it's going up and up and up. How they have been pumping not just misinformation, but disinformation, genuine, intentional, deliberate disinformation into the world for years. To the point where we're all so absolutely convinced. We're so sure. We've been brainwashed. And to find out where, to follow the money trail and where all these people have their fingers and all these pies. I'm tired of being fingered by the medical profession and the pharmaceutical industry. Like, they need to stop fingering me. Take their fingers out of my pie is all I have to say about that. But yes, gross. It's really fucking gross. And as I started to learn that, I was like, do you know what? I can't participate. I can't be part of this. This is just wrong. It'd be like being a police officer and then learning about institutional racism. Nah. Institutional weight stigma, institutional fat phobia. That's it. I'm out. And you know, to be honest, I should have been out a long time ago because I knew about medical racism and I knew about medical misogyny and I knew about medical ableism, and I really should have I should have cared more. I did care, just FYI, but I didn't care enough. But yeah, I finally put on my big boy pants and chose to leave the medical profession. And the GMC were like, you're gonna have a caution on your record. You're gonna have there's gonna be a record of you being disciplined by us because you are a racist, transphobic homophobe who doesn't like white cisgender heterosexuals. How dare you? And I just went, fuck you, GMC. I'm not coming back anyway. To be fair, none of the people I graduated with are working in the UK anymore. Well, very few. The people I've kept in touch with, they've either moved to another country to practice medicine or they've quit medicine. So I'm not the only one that's left. But where are we? Where are we? The last thing I think I realised is just how abusive doctors are. I knew a little bit. Like, I'd met them. I've hung out with them. I've eaten lunch with them. I know that a lot of them are dickheads. But it's amazing how you will excuse that behaviour for a really long time. I'm not proud of it, but I did. And then I was just like, oh, I can't hang around these people anymore. They're gross. And, you know, like, doctors fail their patients, especially their fat patients, but also, like I said, any oppressed group. It's not just that they fail their patients, it's that the system is set up so that even if they don't want to fail their patients, they'll fail them anyway. Even if they have the best intentions. I'd like to think I was a doctor with the best intentions. Maybe that wasn't great, but, you know, I sort of had good intentions at the very least. But even then, the system is set up to fail patients. Even if you want to do right by them, it's really hard to. And so, unsurprisingly, our weight stigma, even if it's like, it's not explicit, even if we don't know that we dislike fat people, even if we think, actually, I don't hate fat people, I'm not prejudiced towards fat people. No, not me. Me? Prejudice? Discrimination? Never. No. Even if that's what we think, deep down inside we are, right? Like, that's implicit bias. That's the conditioning that we've been through throughout our lives. That's something that is just part of existing in the society that we exist in. So even if it's implicit bias, we are statistically going to spend less time with our fat patients. We're going to miss their diagnoses. We're going to fail to treat them, and failure to treat can actually lead to death, by the way. And there are lots of studies that show that failure to treat led to death. There's one that I think is really important, which was the swine flu pandemic, where they found that the link between being fat and dying of swine flu disappeared once you accounted for delayed treatment. And you got to ask yourself, why were fat people's treatment delayed? Was that a doctor thing? Was that a patient thing? Like what happened there? But yeah, it leads to delayed treatment, misdiagnoses, and those of you who have been following me for a while will know that there are multiple stories of that. But it also causes a massive rift. It causes a problem between the doctor and the patient. Patients can't trust their doctors. How can you trust someone who's going to stigmatize you and discriminate against you and oppress you? Patients can't communicate effectively with their doctors. Patients struggle to adhere to their doctor's advice because often it's really shit advice. And oftentimes patients are so afraid of their doctors, fat patients, that they will ignore them. They will avoid them. They will just be like, I'll sit here and suffer in silence. Oh, man. At that stage, I was like, I need to do something. I really need to do something. And that's why I'm here. Trying to do something, trying to make the world a better place. I don't have delusions of grandeur. I'm not trying to fix the world. I am trying to get the right information out there. I'm trying to share the evidence. I'm trying to challenge people's preconceived ideas, and I'm doing it one step at a time. So, for example, I'll do masterclasses. I thought something happened there. Sorry. I do masterclasses. Particular condition, like I said, osteoarthritis or high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes or whatever, sleep apnea, we'll focus on that condition, and I'll be like, right, here's the evidence, make a decision. I recently did something on anesthesia. We're always told that there are more anesthetic complications in fat people. I was like, all right, let's read the actual evidence for this. And there are a few studies which are not particularly helpful, but there was this one particular audit that I looked at in great detail. And, I looked into it, and it turns out, there are more complications in fat people, and it's got everything to do with the shitty doctors that are doing a bad job, and really very little to do with the fat people. If you can't adjust your skills to accommodate all bodies, then really, why are you a doctor? Like, imagine if I'm a barber or I'm a hairdresser, and I'm like, I can cut long hair, but I can't cut short hair. Sorry, we'll have to go somewhere else. Can you imagine if you went to a hairdresser who was like, I only cut long hair, not short hair, and then somebody said to you, well, I want my hair short, and they went, well, no, I'm not doing that. And if the person said to you, well, don't you think you should learn how to cut short hair? The hairdresser would be like, no, why? Short hair's shit. We're not doing that. Can you imagine? Go somewhere else. Or in the case of medicine, there is nowhere else to go. So, this idea that we only, we only learn how to look after certain bodies, that's bullshit. If you can't treat everyone, don't become a doctor. Go do something else. Find a job where you get to decide whether or not you're going to treat some people, because it's completely illegal to deny treatment to people if you become a doctor. So anyway, how did I get onto I don't even know how I got there. It's been a while. I think I've been talking for too long. I really wanted to make this very fluent and concise. I wanted it to be like a model example of what a podcast episode with Asha Lamy is. And I think I did, in a way, because it's completely disorganized, chaotic. I just rambled for 45 minutes. Basically, it's better you know what you're getting. So maybe I'm just going to stick with this, and I am going to signpost you to this one, because I don't think it's going to get any better. It could only get worse. So there you go. That's who I am. And what do I do? So I do my masterclasses. I am super excited to be writing my book, No Way. And this is a book about why... basically, like it kind of follows my journey. It's not autobiographical, but all the things that I learned and I now want to pass on to everyone else, so that everyone who reads it, whether you're a health professional, whether you're a lay person, whether you work with fat people and you want to upskill yourself, like, it doesn't matter who you are. I'm writing this book for everybody and anybody to read and be like, whoa, light bulb moment, mind blown emoji, because there are a few books out there that do this, but perhaps not quite in the same way that I'm going to do it, because I'm doing it from a doctor's point of view. a medical doctor's point of view, why doctors shouldn't prescribe weight loss. That's kind of like the focus of the book. So if you're interested in that and you're interested in some of the points that I made today, in fact, all of the points that I made today, I will be covering in No Way. And you don't have to wait until the book comes out, because there is the No Way membership program where you can join and be part of this process with me. Once a month, I will be doing a live 1 hour kind of workshop where I share all the research and the data and the information. I know ramble on, but there'll be slides, so I'll be slightly less chaotic. And there's plenty of time for Q&A. And in fact, Q&A will be the running theme of the whole program. So we can ask each other questions. People can confront. They don't have to agree with me. They can disagree with me, and they can disagree with me publicly and openly, and I promise not to take offense. And there'll also be written portions, so you get exclusive written content as well. You'll get in sort of, first draft insight into the book that I'm writing, and you get to be part of it as well, because obviously you have opinions and experiences that you want to share, and perhaps even want to be part of the book. So that's what it's all about. So if you want to come do No Way with me, not wait for the end, when the end result on the book, you want to be part of the process, then come join the No Way program. It's going to be incredible. And if you go to my website, fatdoctor.co.uk/no-way, and of course way is spelled WEIGH because I'm punny like that, and you can join. And I do masterclasses once a month, and they're just like, as I said, pick a condition, any condition. If you've got one that you'd like me to cover, please let me know. Obstructive sleep apnea and lipedema are definitely on the agenda. I've done quite a few already, and you can watch the old ones, and you can join the membership as well, and then you can watch as many as you like. And anyway, there's that. I do courses specifically for certain conditions. So for example, diabetes, I have taken everything that I know about diabetes, turned it into a self-paced course, and you can just join that, and by the end of it you'll be an expert in sort of what I call weight inclusive healthcare. So basically what that means is healthcare without ever mentioning weight or diet or exercise. It's a thing. It's a real thing, and I will prove to you that that's safe, and actually probably in your best interest. It's better quality healthcare. That's what I would argue. It's gold standard healthcare. In fact, I'd take it that far. And finally, I consult with people. Did you know that? I do one-to-one consultations, like a single consultation, a group of consultations, like with follow-up. I do coaching, for people who are not getting the help that they need from their doctors, for people who know that something's going on but can't get a diagnosis for love nor money, like they're being ignored by their doctor, they've been sent away, or for people who have a diagnosis but aren't getting the care that they need. And it's not just that they want to know the information. It's not like you want to go do a self-paced course, watch some videos where Ash just sort of rambles on, like, here's this, and did you know this, and look at this graph, and here's a picture of this, and this is the medication that you could try, and did it. Like, if you want that, there's a course for it. But there might be a course for it. I haven't done them for every condition on the planet, by the way. But if you just want to consult and be like, yeah, what do I do for me? Like, what's my individualized management plan going to look like? Like, how can I get my doctor to do this? How can I convince my doctor to scan me, or do this, or do that, or prescribe this, or, finally give me a diagnosis, or treat me like a decent human being and stop lecturing me about weight loss? We cover all of that in the consultation. fatdoctor.co.uk/consultations/masterclasses. Just pretty simple. Or head to the front page and just click on the button. Yeah, all right. Asha, it's almost an hour. My God. They're not normally this long anymore. I'm going to stop now. I'm just going to press stop, and I'll see you next week. I've had some guests on. Thanks for those of you who were patient with me. Obviously, I didn't have a podcast episode last week. I was going to record one. I was going to record this, and then I got COVID. Fucking COVID. And it took me ages to get better, and I was really pissed because I actually got it 2 weeks ago, and then I thought I had a week. I thought it was like a week ahead of myself, and I was not. So thanks for those of you who have been patient with me. Normally I drop a podcast episode every Wednesday, and so I'll see you next Wednesday, maybe, possibly. Check me out on YouTube if you want to see my hair. It's very long right now. I have to cut it. I'm going to do it after this, actually. But you can see me with my kefir in the background. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I was going to say something about Palestine. I'm just going to say free Palestine. And also, we're like a week or so away from the US elections at the time of recording. By the time you listen to this, I sincerely hope we're talking about President Harris. I really do. Okay. Bye all. See you next Wednesday.